Hi, hello, and welcome. It is September 25th, 2025. It's Thursday night, which means it's time for Fantasy Football Night in America. Welcome to the latest episode of the FFPC Insider Access Show. My name is Eric Balkman. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman. You know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, and of course the FFPC. You know this guy from Established the Run, no stranger, obviously, to this show as well as he's been on it multiple times. He's going to wow us again for the umpteenth consecutive time. Want to welcome on the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who's in charge of NFL fantasy betting and projections over at Established the Run. He is at Jack Miller02 on X. Jack, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I hope I can live up to that intro you just gave me, but it's crazy. We're already on to week 4. Feels like it's flying by. So excited to be on here again.
I was listening to you and Adam Levitan and oh God, help me out. Who else was on that show on the latest Established Around podcast?
Daigle and Mark Daigle, I think.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Yes, thank you. And you said the same thing about, it's already on to week 4, and it got me thinking. I'm like, God, we spend all off season just pining and waiting, and finally the season's here, and it feels like it just started, and we're already a month in. It's the longest off season in professional sports, which I guess could be a good thing for the NFL, but it's also a bad thing too. And you think about how your takes and how your stances and how your flag plants have gone, over the course of drafting season, and how they can shift. I think the thing that we need to understand here in being fantasy analysts, not that I'm one, I'm just a host. But the thing that we need to understand is we could spend all summer researching and doing all this stuff, but when we get this fresh information, and now 4 weeks of fresh information, Jack, I'm sure you've pivoted and you've moved off of some of your takes in July and August because you have to, because it's a smart thing to do.
For sure, yeah. I think we get all this information, or we think we get all this information throughout June, July, August, preseason, training camp, all that, but the cards aren't really on the table until week 1, and that's when we see what coaches and teams actually want to do and how they want to use and deploy their players. Like Travis Hunter is probably the biggest example. I feel like all offseason we heard about how he's going to play 80% of snaps on offense. He's barely going to play defense. And here we are 3 weeks in, and he's playing more defensively than offensively. So I think you don't want to overreact to stuff like that, but I do think that it's important to adjust your priors as you get new information.
The Hunter thing is it stinks because, well, it doesn't stink because Jack, this wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, I think it might still be the most likely outcome with Hunter is, he ends up being like a typical rookie receiver where he doesn't offer a whole lot in September and October. But once we get into, November, Thanksgiving, fantasy playoffs, all of a sudden things could just click for this guy. And he's got this uber athleticism, and all of a sudden he's looking like a potential league winner. Which is why I'm not selling on him in redraft leagues right now. I'm holding on to him because I think the best better be yet to come with Hunter, because I haven't seen a whole lot of it. But that's my stance on it. But right now, you're right. I mean, it just, as much as we were excited to see Travis Hunter and catching balls from Lawrence, sort of that whole Jacksonville passing offense. God, we could do 2 hours on that with what a train wreck that's been so far this year. We will get into part of it later on the show tonight. We will go around the NFL in the first segment tonight. Jack and I we'll be talking about the Kansas City pass catchers, especially with the news on Xavier Worthy. Some injuries that we need to get into, CeeDee Lamb replacements. Obviously, we want to figure out what Jack thinks about Amari and Hampton now that Najee Harris is out for the year. And what are we doing with Cam Scadaboo with Tyrone Tracy expected to miss a few weeks? That's the first segment tonight. We'll get into our Thursday night football preview. Seahawks and Cardinals on Prime Video tonight. Zach Charbonnet, breaking news. He is active tonight, to maybe no one's surprise, but how does that affect Kenneth Walker? We'll get into that. Trey Benson, is he a bell cow? I know Jack has some thoughts on this, and we'll get into that as well in the second segment. Final segment, we'll do starter sits tonight. A lot of polarizing players here. We'll get into Isaiah Pacheco, Wan'Dale Robinson, Dallas Goedert, Geno Smith, and, of course, Bo Nix as well. I want to remind everybody, if you are looking for some weekly action with the FFPC Week 4 Weekly Challenge is live. There's no draft. There's no salary cap. You're just picking 10 players or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. You can win up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100 team contests right now. MYFFPC.com. Only one player per team. If you want Trey Benson, you can't have Trey McBride. If you want Kenneth Walker, you can't have Zach Charbonnet. Not that you want to do that anyway. MyFFPC.com is where to go for that, MyFFPC.com. Shout out to our producer, the man behind the glass tonight, Sean Engel, pushing all the right buttons. Let's get into it, Jack. The first thing I want to lead off with tonight, Jacory Croskey-Merritt. He missed Wednesday's practice. I do believe, and I have to look this up right now, I do believe he missed practice again today for the Commanders, which is not great when you consider that this is a player that a lot of people were excited about. A lot of people were planning on flexing him out this week, and they can't flex him out if he's inactive. I want to get your thoughts on a guy who has not practiced 2 days this week. And then if he is inactive against the Falcons this week, Jack, are you team Jeremy McNichols? Are you team Chris Rodriguez? Or are you team don't start any Commanders running backs in week 4?
I think if JCM misses, I would prefer not to start either of them. But if I had to choose, it would be Chris Rodriguez. I think he'd be a heavy favorite to inherit most of the rushing work. Jeremy McNichols seems like he's more in the Austin Eckler role. If Jacory Croskey-Merritt does play, I mean, it might be even worse just for all of them, just because then you have McNichols still in the Eckler pass catching role, and you've got Chris Rodriguez and JCM splitting the carries. We saw last week Chris Rodriguez came after being a healthy scratch the first 2 weeks, and he out-carried Bill Croskey-Merritt 11-8. Just out of the blue after there was hype going into week 3 about the Commanders expanding Jacory Croskey-Merritt's role. Cliff Kingsbury has said some stuff along the lines of he needs to be better without the ball. We like what he can do with the ball in his hands, but the pass pro, the route running, all the stuff that the rookie running backs sometimes don't have right off the bat, he needs to improve. So I think Jacory Croskey-Merritt is a pretty good example of a rookie we can expect to grow into a larger role throughout the season. But I think in the short term, he's pretty tough to trust with Washington using a 3-man backfield.
Do you think he's the type of player that what I just brought up with Travis Hunter, where the game slows down, stuff clicks for him in the second half of the season, and I know like the other thing too is like Hunter, if he ends up turning it on, he's fighting with guys like De'Ami Brown. He's fighting with guys like, Parker Washington or what have you, a guy that players that do not have his talent level. Croskey-Merritt, I don't know if you could make the same case because he was a 7th round pick with McNichols and Rodriguez. I can't remember. It might have been on Establish the Run. It might have been Levitan who actually said this. I could be wrong about if Croskey-Merritt can't fight off these guys by like November, then maybe he's just not very good.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I do think that he's a pretty prime candidate to expand his role as the season goes on, just because we already know who Jeremy McNichols is at this stage of his career. He's nothing special. He's a fine pass protector, a fine pass catcher, but he's no one that should prevent a talented rookie running back from taking on a larger role. Now the question is, like you said, is JCM that level of talent where he can push McNichols to the side? And then with Chris Rodriguez, I mean, we've kind of already seen what Washington thinks of him. They made him a healthy scratch weeks 1 and 2. It's pretty clear to me that they don't see him as their long-term answer at running back. But again, it's kind of just a question of, is Jacory Croskey-Merritt good enough? Can he win the coaches trust fast enough to really push those guys to the side and earn the 3-down RB1 role that I think fantasy managers all want?
I want to move on to Isaiah Likely here, a player that many people in the FFPC drafted late and have rostered since then. I think in non-tight end premium leagues, you still might be able to pick this guy up, but maybe not. It's tough to say. He was limited in yesterday's walkthrough practice for the Ravens dealing with the foot injury. Obviously, has still not gotten into a game this season. Limited practice for him prior to the Lions game on Monday Night Football last week, and he's limited on the first injury report of the week here. He is, I don't know, I hesitate to say this on a Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. He's probably going to play in week 4, but God, I don't know. If he is active, it's going to be interesting for people who have not only Likely, Jack, but Mark Andrews as well, who came back from the dead. In one of my local fantasy football show, he was my bust of the week for week 3, and he has his best, performance since Obama was president, essentially. It was insane what he did on Monday Night Football. And you look at Likely, who's a super talented guy, a player that his own coach said his expectation is for Likely to be an all-pro this season, which is tough to do. Not a Pro Bowler, an all-pro. If you're looking at what to do at tight end with the Ravens come Sunday this week against Kansas City, if Likely is active, would you feel okay about flexing either of these players? Again, in FFPC tight end premium leagues, would you feel okay about flexing either of these players? Or are you really rolling the dice if you want to insert either one of these guys into your starting lineup in week 4?
I think it's much more of a dice roll on Likely, who I still like long term. I liked him a lot more last week when it looked like Mark Andrews was kind of dusted. His week 3 performance, I was kind of in a similar boat. I really was not expecting that. I thought maybe it was basically over for Andrews and it was going to be Likely's role whenever he got back. I do think it's really tough to start a guy like Likely in his first game back. He's missed 2 months at this point. I think that's too significant of time for you to immediately thrust him in your starting lineup. Andrews, I expect to be the tight end 1 this week, even if Likely is active, and I do think he'll be active. I kind of thought he'd be active last week, to be honest. But I do think long term, I would prefer the upside of Likely over someone like Andrews.
Do you believe, how much did you change your mind about Andrews after what you saw on Monday night? A little, somewhat, not at all. How do you feel about, what is your outlook on Mark? You just said, you prefer Likely, obviously, but has your outlook changed on the dustiness of Mark Andrews after Monday Night Football?
Honestly, it has. I just didn't think he still had that kind of ceiling left in the chamber at his age. And it is kind of interesting. We saw him start slow last year too, although that was kind of more explainable after he had an offseason car crash. But again, a slow start this season, and then he kind of gets into the groove in week 3. So it did change my opinion just seeing him flash that ceiling that we've seen before from Mark Andrews.
We got a little bit of breaking news here regarding a stud wide receiver. I'm going to get to that in a second, but I do want to answer some of these questions here. We'll go on YouTube first. Jacob Ander wants to know, Jack, he's in a 6-point per touchdown passing league, and he's got to decide between Geno Smith or Kyler Murray this week. Obviously, Kyler Murray on Thursday Night Football tonight at home against the Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith at home against the Chicago Bears. I continue to be underwhelmed by Kyler Murray. I think, and we'll talk about the Seattle defense here coming up, but I think this is a bad matchup for Murray. Whereas I could see a lot of points being scored in that Raiders-Bears game, I think I lean towards Smith here, and maybe it's recency bias that's affecting me the way that Smith was bombing the ball down the field to Trey Tucker. But I think he can have successful performance against the Bears on Sunday as well. So I lean towards Geno Smith here over Kyler Murray.
I think I lean Kyler with the rushing upside, but I'm trying to pull up our projections really quick. We have it very close. We have them 0.2 points apart in our ETR projections. So a very good question to ask. We do have Kyler slightly ahead. So okay. I lean Kyler.
So Murray slightly ahead there, and we'll see. I'll bring this up too. Not that this isn't just like the end all be all, but I always like to look at the totals on these games and obviously the spreads. 43.5 tonight with the Cardinals, a 1.5 point home underdog. And then if you go to that Bears-Raiders game, that is in the 425 window, 47.5 with the Raiders, 1.5 points. So yeah, it's very close. This is why he's asking us, because it's a coin flip here. ETR is saying go with Kyler Murray. Bulky is saying go with Geno Smith. So I know which way I would lean on that, and you probably know which way you should lean on that too. A Manster 23. Yo, do I trade K9 for BTJ PPR? My running backs are McCaffrey, Walker, and Trey Benson. My wide receivers are Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Chris Olave, and Emeka Egbuka. I lean sort of against this. It seems like your wide receivers are pretty deep right now. You got 4 really good ones there. And if you trade Walker, you're adding Brian Thomas into that fray. And then you're down to Christian McCaffrey and Trey Benson. I don't know if I want to roll that way. I think you have good balance right now. So I would keep Walker, McCaffrey, and Benson. Keep Jefferson, Adams, Olave, and Egbuka at receiver. While I do think Thomas is a strong buy low right now, Jack, I think for this situation, I would be against this trade.
Yeah, I prefer Brian Thomas in a vacuum, but I do think with this team, It depends a little bit on how many receivers you can start. If you can start 4, if this is one of the like FFPC 2 flex where you can start 4 receivers, I kind of still lean Brian Thomas Jr. to be honest. But I think with this specific team, it is pretty close because you do have that wide receiver depth as you mentioned, and you'd be pretty. It depends on also who your current RB4 is. If you don't have a viable current RB4 who would become your third running back without Walker, then that makes it kind of a tougher proposition.
2 flex, 2 wide receiver format there for a Manster 23. So thank you for that. Hopefully we helped you out. We'll go on X right now. Kyle Burr, Romeo Doubs, or Evan Engram at the flex. Evan Engram did indeed return to practice this week, which is a good thing, as Martha Stewart would say. But I don't know if he's going to have many good things this week in fantasy. I know it's a really good matchup with the Bengals, but you're looking at the second straight week of no Jayden Reed against one of the worst passing defenses in the NFL. Even in tight end premium, I don't know if I could pull the trigger on Engram over Doubs. If it's non-tight end premium, Jack, Doubs is an easy call for me here over Evan Engram.
Yeah, I think it's Doubs pretty comfortably too. I mean, Evan Engram, he's one of these guys where if the Broncos get in positive game script, Sean Payton prefers to play Adam Troutman, and the Broncos are 7-point favorites over Jake Browning. So I think this could be a floor game for Engram with the game script we're expecting. So I'm going Doubs here.
Koo on YouTube right now just made a trade. This is an interesting one. He got Bijan Robinson. He gave up Kyren Williams, Devontae Adams, and Roma Dunze. So you got the best player in the trade, but you did pay the iron price for it here. He gets, I beg your pardon, he gets Brian Thomas Jr. back as well. He has Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson, Drake London. I think we're split, and he's also got Trey Benson. We're splitting hairs here a little bit. You could make the case that you're maybe selling high on Roma Dunze and perhaps Devontae Adams as well. Kyren Williams too. I think that with the Blake Corum timeshare that they have going on there, which is, splitting 75, 25, 70, 30. And that's what Sean McVay says that he wants it to be at. This could be the last week that you could sell high on Kyren Williams. It's tough to say. I don't think you lost the trade. I don't think you necessarily won the trade. It's close, Jack. I don't really have strong feelings on this. I think it's fine. And usually I give the advantage to the player that gets the best asset in the deal. And in this case, I do believe it's Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I prefer the Bijan side slightly. I don't think it's egregious on either side, but I prefer getting Bijan. I think Brian Thomas Jr. sends it over the top a little bit. If you didn't get back Brian Thomas Jr. or got back a much lesser receiver, I'd like the 3 pieces. But Bijan and Brian Thomas are both, in my opinion, pretty high end starters. So I like getting both of them.
RGQ on YouTube. I need help starting. This is a half-point PPR format. A flex, 2 running backs, 3 receivers. So you're looking at St. Brown, Nico Collins, Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, and Quentin Johnston. So let's tackle that first. We got to bench 2 of those guys. In good conscience, I can't really bench any of the first 3. So I guess I have to sit Keenan Allen. I have to sit Quentin Johnston. Is that the way you see it too, Jack?
Yeah, we've got a flex here, so we can come back to Keenan and QJ. But I think for the 3 wide receivers, it's got to be Amon-Ra, Nico, and Rome.
So half-point PPR, let's look at the running backs. We got to pick 2 of these for him here tonight. Kyren Williams, I still think like this week, you probably still got to get him in your lineup. And then it gets a little messy between Hubbard, Benson, Judkins, and Pacheco. It's close between Hubbard and Benson. I think I lean Benson here as the second running back to go with Kyren Williams.
I lean Benson and Kyren too. I agree it's very close between Benson and Chuba. I really couldn't blame you if you went the other way, but I slightly lean Benson.
For me, the flex comes down to Hubbard, and then obviously one of these Chiefs receivers, probably Keenan Allen for me. I guess my flex is probably Keenan Allen over Johnston and Hubbard. I beg your pardon. And Hubbard. I think the flex is probably Keenan Allen for me. The Chargers get to go to travel to the Giants this week. That's who they play. And then Hubbard, Chuba Hubbard this week is up against, I just had it. I'm sorry. Hubbard is playing the New England Patriots. Yeah, exactly. So I roll with Keenan Allen here as the flex.
Yeah, it's really close between Keenan and Chuba for me. I think I'm with you. I think I'm going Keenan Allen. The volume is just so good right now.
Yeah, I mean this is a good problem to have, and obviously you're gonna be happy you have this depth once the bye weeks hit, which I think they start next week, right, Jack? Do you know offhand?
I don't know offhand, but I think it usually starts week 5, so that
Week
sounds
5,
right.
yeah. I'm looking at it right now. Week 5 is when it starts with Atlanta, Chicago, Green Bay, and Pittsburgh all on bye. So that's next week. We'll tackle week 4 this week when everybody's got still a really good team, and you don't have to worry about replacements in that lineup. Permar 99, our good buddy, is he needs one from Matthew Golden, Jameson Williams, Hunter Henry. He's leaning towards Golden here. And I listen, who am I to say don't start a Packers receiver against the Dallas Cowboys defense? So I get it. If it is tight end premium, I think that you are looking at a situation where it becomes much closer. If it's non-tight end premium, oh God, you throw Jameson Williams into this too, Jack. This gets really dicey. The Lions are coming off the short week, obviously, as they played Monday Night Football in Baltimore against the Ravens. God, I think, as much as I love Golden, I think I might like Jameson Williams here better. And then if it's tight end premium, it's Henry. Non-tight end premium, I think it's Williams. I don't know. How are you seeing this? This has got me twisted a little bit.
I think this is another one that's really close. I think it's JMO if it's not tight end premium. If it is tight end premium, I think it's really close between JMO and Henry.
It's not tight end premium.
Not tight end premium. I'd probably go JMO there. If picking one, if picking two, it's JMO and Golden.
So there you go. Hopefully that helps you out, Permar. And we will be answering more start and sit questions throughout the next couple segments on the show. Jack Miller and from Establish a Run joining us tonight on the show. I want on the FFPC Insider Access show. We have to talk about the Chiefs receivers because this is a little confounding here as we try to figure this out for a 425 game. Correct me if I'm wrong. No, 425 game between Baltimore and Kansas City. And we don't know exactly what's going on with Xavier Worthy. However, if we read between the lines, if we are reading the tea leaves, we can probably, I don't want to say safely assume, but I think we can assume that Worthy is going to be going against Baltimore on Sunday afternoon. Had a shoulder injury caused by one Travis Kelce in week 1. He practiced the following week, but this is actually today was his first full practice since he injured his shoulder. The concern I have here is the early reporting that came out on this, Jack, was that he is going to be used as a decoy. Like you often don't hear reporting like that. I think it was Nate Taylor from ESPN saying he's going to be out there, but he's going to be limited and he's going to be used as a decoy, which is kind of a weird thing to say. Sometimes we hear that a player is active and he's going to be out there, but we don't hear that he's going to be used as a decoy until we actually see it with our own eyes. In regards to Xavier Worthy this week, this not only affects him, this affects Travis Kelce, this affects Hollywood Brown as well. What do you think is going to happen? And knowing what we know publicly about Xavier Worthy's shoulder, what is the proper way to handle guys like Kelce, Brown, and Worthy in your lineups with a late start on Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, I'm hoping we get more information between now and 12 p.m. Sunday. Right now, after a full practice, I think it's fine to plan to start Worthy. We don't really see a lot of guys fully practice and then go into a significantly less than normal role. And given that Worthy seemed to have some chance of playing last week, I'd guess the extra week. And I mean, this is a huge game for Kansas City. I'd guess that they try to get everything they can out of him. I mean, Kelce's been really disappointing from basically every perspective you want to look at. His target share is down, even though he has less competition than he had last year. He doesn't look very productive after the catch. He doesn't look like he has the same explosiveness he used to. You still have to start him, I think, just because he's still a tight end one. He's still getting respectable, albeit not elite volume. But Worthy's going to get into what decreased target share he was already getting even more. So it's definitely a downgrade. Same for Marquise Brown. I mean, Juju and Tyquan Thornton are both going to play too. So I think just adding another significant piece to the puzzle in Worthy just ticks everyone down slightly more.
We talk about the bad part about it, not knowing what to do with Worthy, Brown, Kelsey. You bring up the Thornton aspect as well. Maybe this is a good thing for Patrick Mahomes. The Ravens have been giving up a lot of points this year, and granted, they've been playing against some pretty tough offenses. But this could be another game where Mahomes actually plays really well. And the fact that you're adding these extra weapons for him, maybe he becomes a better start than Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix, players like this, even Jordan Love against the Cowboys. I think there's a conversation to be had with that. But to me, this is good news for Patrick Mahomes, obviously.
I think so too. But the passing efficiency needs to take a significant step up. Like it's looked really bad for the Chiefs passing offense. Mahomes, excluding week 3, has been really active with his legs, which is huge for fantasy. But I don't know. I mean, it's been just so bad that I don't know if Xavier Worthy can fix it. I think once Worthy and Rashee Rice are back, it's going to look a lot better. But I'm still a little skeptical of Mahomes for week 4 because we kind of saw what it looked like last year in the regular season with Worthy, and it wasn't the Mahomes we're used to seeing by any means.
I just, Mahomes just turned 30, I think, before last week. And he's got a lot of good football left in him. And I just feel like we're still witnessing like the end of this first phase of his career, the weapons that he's going to be using. I just feel if Kansas City gets back to the Super Bowl again, it's going to be with, obviously Worthy is going to be one of them, but they need a running back. They need a real running back there. They need a real threat at tight end, which they don't have right now with Kelsey. And I think it's going to happen. I think this year it's going to be a struggle bus for Kansas City week in and week out. It's just going to be one of those things you can just never really count on based on the level of talent, the age of the talent that they have on the squad right now, and where these guys are at in their careers. David Njoku, I have not seen what happened in practice today for the Browns, but he was limited yesterday. He normally is on the injury report for Cleveland. This is not just 2025. It happened in 2024, 2023, going back. And he gets the Lions this week, which granted their defense, I picked up in a lot of leagues last night, Jack. I think they're a solid streamer, obviously, against Cleveland. But I do think Njoku could do some damage. He had 5 catches last week. It's the most he's had all season, and 40 yards, which was also the most he's had all season. Obviously, Harold Fannin is gumming up the works here a little bit. But if you look at Njoku in tight end premium leagues, I think he's a slam dunk start, whether you're looking at flex or your tight end. Non-tight end premium leagues, I think it gets a little bit dicey. I don't know if we're seeing a changing of the guard in Cleveland right now, but certainly for fantasy, when I thought about Fannin and Njoku and where they would be at in regards to production at this point in the season, I did not view them as this close together. They're almost coin flips on a week-to-week basis of who's going to do better. And I don't really have a good way of predicting it between Njoku and Fannin. How do you view this situation?
Yeah, the snaps and routes are still good for Njoku. He's still running a lot of routes. The targets are down. I think last year he was around a 20% target share. This year, through 3 games, he's at 14%. Fannin is also at 14%, even though he's playing a little less. It really seems like the Browns are making a concerted effort to get him the ball when he is on the field, and that's pretty bad news for Njoku. It's also bad news for Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman and really all of the Browns pass catchers that have such a significant threat added to the mix. I do still agree with you that, I mean, this is a game the Browns are going to be throwing a ton. They're 9.5-point underdogs to the Lions. We know Joe Flacco is going to sling it. And Njoku's still out there enough. He's still getting enough targets to be a viable play in tight end premium leagues. I think in non-tight end premium leagues, he's clearly not a flex option. I think he's a pretty low-end starting option. But I do think that a lot of people probably don't have much better options in non-tight end premium leagues. And so it's fine to trot him out there. He's not someone you're going to be super excited to start every week, but he's a viable option.
Sean Engel coming through for us tonight, our producer, saying that Njoku did get in a full practice today, which is good coming up on that game against the Lions this week. That Browns-Lions total is at 44.5, which is interesting. I thought it'd be a little bit higher, but maybe they're just not giving the Cleveland offense enough credit. 10-point favorites are the Lions in the Motor City at 1 p.m. on Sunday. Brock Purdy, what a ride it's been so far for him this season. David Lombardi reporting that John Lynch saying he looked really good in practice yesterday. And it certainly seems, Jack, that we are going to see Brock Purdy back on the gridiron this week. Mac Jones re-aggravated a knee injury that he suffered in preseason. So now all of a sudden Purdy is the more healthy quarterback between the two. This is the Jacksonville Jaguars that he is going to be throwing against this week. I would imagine that you want to keep Purdy upright as much as possible. Probably no Bosa for the 49ers. So maybe this makes it, I don't want to say a shootout because I think both teams are going to be running the football a lot. Obviously, the Niners know where their bread is buttered with Christian McCaffrey, and the Jaguars' ground game has been much more successful in moving the football downfield rather than the passing game so far this season. But Brock Purdy, certainly a decent matchup for him, even missing the time. Does he slate in as a starter for you right away? Do you have any qualms about it?
I'd be a little cautious with what the rushing workload is going to look like with the toe injury. I've just read enough online about this kind of toe injury where it seems like it could impact him from a rushing standpoint. He quietly was scrambling a ton last year, and so that was a pretty big part of his game. So it would be unfortunate for fantasy purposes if that is dialed back a little bit. I've also seen a lot of stuff about the Jaguars defense being a potentially bad matchup. I'm a little less worried about that just because I want to see the Jaguars do it against someone that's not the Panthers, Jake Browning, or this Texans offense that hasn't really moved the ball against anyone. So I'm not super worried about the matchup. I would be a little bit worried about the toe injury limiting his rushing. But I do think he's still, this is a Kyle Shanahan offense. They're going to be super efficient. We'll see if Juwan Jennings plays. I don't think we know on that yet. But regardless, I think Purdy should still be his usual efficient self. It's just maybe the rushing isn't quite at the standard we're used to.
Would you play Kyler Murray over Brock Purdy then tonight?
I would.
Yeah. Jared Goff over Brock Purdy?
I think so. But that one's, I think so.
Okay. And then the last one here. Well, no, that's a dumb one because if Jayden Daniels is active, you're going to play him. What about Matthew Stafford against the Colts versus Brock Purdy?
I think I'd probably lean Purdy there.
Okay. All right. I want to go back to Twitch here. Chance F, 20,000. I think it's 20,000 if I'm reading that correctly. He wants to know, should he start, and I would say he, could be she as well, DeAndre Swift at Las Vegas or his other option, or her other option, Chase Brown at Denver. And this was not even a question a month ago, but now given the quarterback situation in Cincinnati and given DeAndre Swift seemingly fending off Roschon Johnson, seemingly fending off Kyle Monangai, this is a situation that we have to weigh in on here. I still lean Brown. I'm not there yet. I know there's a lot of people down on Brown after the Burrow injury and after what we saw against Minnesota last week. But I'm still trotting him out there, even in Denver against a pretty tough defense over DeAndre Swift, who's at Las Vegas, Jack.
Yeah, I'm still Team Brown too. Especially, Samaje Perine is banged up. I haven't seen anything yet on whether he's going to play. I think he's expected to play. But if Perine doesn't play, that would mean Chase Brown also gets the third down snaps. But even if Perine's in, I think you still go Chase Brown. The volume is just so good. I know he's been absolutely horrific from an efficiency standpoint, and we really can't expect that to get a whole lot better with Jake Browning at quarterback against this Broncos defense. But volume is still king in fantasy football, and so I'm going Chase Brown.
Yeah, and I look at. Do you have any metrics? Did you look this up? I don't have anything. What did Jake Browning do back in 2023 in regards to throwing to running backs? Do you recall offhand? I know when Chase was healthy, he was pumping the ball to Chase. I know when Chase wasn't healthy, he was pumping the ball to Higgins. I really don't remember what he was doing with running backs, if he was checking down to them at all, because that's something that, even though Joe Burrow is awesome, all-world quarterback, he still got Chase Brown involved in the passing game. And I wonder if that's going to be the case for Brown with Browning going forward here. Part of the reason we like Brown so much is the pass catching. And if he's not getting that with Browning, then we have to reevaluate.
I don't want to be quoted on this because I could be wrong. I think Browning threw to running backs a pretty good amount. I know he threw to tight ends a ton when he started in 2023. Running backs, I think he threw slightly more than the Bengals were without Jake Browning, but I could be wrong on that.
That I was just curious offhand, and that's something that we could check out later on. But I do think that's worth revisiting here. Okay, let's go with Joshua Mogard on YouTube right now. He's got to flex out one of these players: Lad McConkey, Chris Olave, Trey Benson. Olave has been very involved in the passing game with New Orleans, and he's going to have to be again this week because I think there's going to be a lot of throwing for Spencer Rattler. Bills are like 16, 17-point favorites in that game at Orchard Park. You have Trey Benson, obviously, tonight, who may or may not be the bell cow. Certainly, he's going to get a lot more work in week 4 than what he did in week 3 against Seattle. And then Lad McConkey, who's been the victim of being on a really good passing team. Herbert and the Chargers probably airing it out more than I expected so far this season, Jack. I also didn't expect Keenan Allen to be this heavily involved, and Quentin Johnston to be, have this magnet to the end zone. He's been very, very good so far this year. So this is a tough call. If you can only play one of these, for me, I guess I'd probably eliminate Olave, and this comes down to McConkey and Benson. Is the volume for Benson enough to for you to say that you're going to give him the nod over McConkey? What would you tell Joshua Mogard here?
Yeah, my gut take was Lad, and then I looked at our projections, and we actually have him last of the 3, which surprised me a little bit. We have Trey Benson first, so he would have been second for me, just on gut take, and I think I'll lean into the numbers here and go with Trey Benson.
Is there something to be said for, as Permar brings this up here, when you consider the upside of Jaxson Dart, who was named the starter this week for New York, getting to throw to Theo Johnson, Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, getting Cam Scatterbo out of the backfield as well. Is there something to be said for starting Dart in that game against the Chargers over Jayden Daniels, who's hobbled and who may be in a lower scoring game there? If Daniels is active, is he a slam dunk play over Dart, or is there a nuanced decision in this that maybe Dart would be the better play over Daniels, who's still dealing with a knee injury?
If Jayden Daniels is active, I'm definitely starting him over Dart. Dart definitely has a lot of upside, but I think this is just a tough spot for him going against a really good defense, a Jesse Minter coach defense in his first career start. I like the upside, but I mean, we're talking about a guy who admittedly is not healthy, but when he's healthy, he's a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I think it's too aggressive to throw Jaxson Dart in the same conversation that quickly.
Incognito TK on YouTube. This is an interesting one. He has the opportunity to part with Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers in exchange for Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Saquon Barkley. So you're trading this Baltimore hookup stack in exchange for an Arizona one, and you're also getting Barkley with that as well. I feel like you are buying low on Murray, Harrison, and Barkley right now. You may or may not be trading high on Jackson. I don't know. I feel like you're probably just getting normal value for Zay Jones. Where would you stand in on this deal? It's very tempting when you throw Barkley in there, Jack.
Yeah, it's Saquon for me. I definitely like the Saquon side. I think if you have an opportunity to get Saquon and 2 very viable starters in addition in exchange for Lamar and Zay, I think it's a pretty clear take for me.
We'll get into Marvin Harrison in about 15, 20 minutes or so, because I want to pick your brain on that. Let's go with Gravity on Twitch. Picking 2 out of the 4 here: Metcalf, Harrison, Golden, Coleman. He's leaning Golden and Coleman right now. I would lean against that. I feel like you got to get Metcalf in there. And quite frankly, I think I take Harrison here. I think I go Metcalf Harrison over Golden and Coleman. It's weird, Jack. I feel like I've spent all week talking up Matthew Golden and how he's going to destroy the Cowboys, and yet every question I get, I'm saying, bench Golden. I like the other options better. It's weird, but I think it's Metcalf and Harrison here for me.
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a breakout spot for Matthew Golden, this is it against this defense that's just gotten torn up 2 weeks in a row. With that being said, I'm with you. I'd like to see it before I starting Golden over guys like Metcalf and Harrison Jr. As rough as it has been for both of those guys. I'm still clinging to the prize a little bit and going with Metcalf and Marvin Harrison.
Gravity, it's chimed in too. Like you talk about Metcalf, he started off the season with a 7-target game. That's been his most. Then he followed up with 4 targets. He gets the Vikings on Sunday. He has had to rely on touchdowns to be fantasy relevant from a weekly, week by week basis. But I would counter that saying that Keon Coleman's best game was week 1. And I don't know if he's been getting targets. Matthew Golden, I can guarantee you, has not been getting targets. Like maybe a few more in week 3 with no Jayden Reed. But I do think the argument that you're making with Metcalf, you can make the same argument about Coleman. You can make the same argument about Golden as well, and maybe even Harrison to a certain extent too. But I think the upside plays, even though Golden's one of them, I think that Metcalf and Harrison is where I would roll on this. Okay, let's move back to what did I want to talk about? This is great. Let's talk about Jauan Jennings right after we talk about Brock Purdy, and then we got a bunch of questions. It is what it is. We'll go back to San Francisco here in regards to Jauan Jennings, who was inactive last week, Jack. A guy that was very polarizing in drafting season. A guy that we didn't know if it was a calf injury. We didn't know if it was a contract. We didn't know if it was a combination of the two. Mm-hmm. And then he sits out last week, and Ricky Pearsall has a pretty big week, and Mac Jones was looking to him early and often. This just coming 6 minutes ago from Demetrius Harvey, Jauan Jennings did not practice today for the 49ers. The reports we got yesterday, it seemed like, veteran rest, just give him an extra day. And now it doesn't seem like that's the case at all. He is on the injury report officially for the 49ers today with ankle and shoulder injuries right now. If he gets in a limited practice tomorrow, I feel a lot more confident about flexing Jennings out. But from what I saw last week with Pearsall, and I know we're going back to Brock Purdy this week, but Pearsall, I don't want to say he looks like the real deal, but he looks very, very good. And he's coming into a situation, or Jennings is coming into a situation where he's got to make himself known. He's sort of got to force the issue to get the ball. With Pearsall looking so good, I don't feel real good about Jennings this week, even if he does get in a limited practice tomorrow.
Yeah, I think you can start Pearsall for sure, regardless of what happens with Jauan Jennings. On Jauan, I think a lot comes down to tomorrow. I'm a little surprised he's DNP'd twice in a row after it seemed like he was maybe erring on the side of doubtful, but at least semi-questionable going into last weekend. Now it seems like he might be a risk of missing a second straight week. I think hopefully we'll get a lot more information on his actual health before lock on Sunday. I do think that if he's limited, he's a pretty tough start if we don't get any more information. We don't know how much he's going to play. It seems like a more serious injury than we thought maybe at this time last week. So I'm with you there.
R. Highland on YouTube, PPR Flex League question, starter set, Trey Benson, Chris Olave, Matthew Golden, or Teteroa McMillan. He says he's not sure if he's all in on the Trey Benson trade, and the potential matchup against Dallas is tough for him to pass up with Golden. He can only pick one of these guys. If it's one, to me, it's not Golden. It comes down to me between McMillan and Benson. And I think, again, this is full PPR. I think I lean towards McMillan. He practiced yesterday. Did he practice today? I think he practiced today. He did not practice yesterday with the calf issue, which I know is always, a difficult thing to try to assess when you're looking into, how successful a player is going to be that week. But I think I would rank a McMillan, Benson, Golden, Olave here. It's close between Golden and Olave as well. This is a good problem to have.
Yeah, I think if picking one, it's clearly McMillan or Benson. This is another one where my first instinct was pretty clearly McMillan, but we do have Benson higher once again. So I guess maybe you have to go Trey Benson, although honestly, with how good McMillan's looked, I know the passing offense as a whole has looked a little bit rough at times, but I'd have a really tough time benching Teteroa McMillan.
War Eagle 2178. Should I trade Nico Collins for Saquon Barkley? This is one of those classic questions, Jack. It depends what your running back and receiver, situation looks like, right? In a vacuum, I think I'd rather have Collins over Barkley. Your thoughts?
It definitely comes down to what you need more. I think I lean Barkley over Nico with how poor the Texans offense has looked. I know that the Eagles offense for the most part has not looked super inspiring either, but we're still talking about a guy who just coming off a historic season. So I'm not moving off Saquon Barkley that quickly.
The Cowboys are not only going to be having their hands full with the Green Bay offense on Sunday Night Football, Jack, they're going to have their hands full with the Green Bay defense without, at least we believe, without CeeDee Lamb, who did not practice yesterday. I assume he did not practice today. It's wild because, he's been diagnosed and reported as a high ankle sprain, and yet he has not been ruled out. These high ankle sprains, we normally think it's like a month and a half. And yet we're hanging on pins and needles whether Jerry Jones is going to let us know if Lamb practice. Like, he's not going to play Sunday night. In the case that he does not practice or does not play on Sunday night, is there another guy besides Pickens, besides Ferguson, that you can look at flexing? Kevontae Turpin, Jalen Tolbert, probably the most likely candidates. Maybe the question is who do I start between those two guys? Maybe the question is, if you only have one roster spot, who's the right guy to roster on your team that you can deploy out as a flex when the buys hit next week, when CeeDee Lamb, again, we think will not be playing for a while.
Yeah, if I only had one roster spot, it would be Kevontae Turpin. I think Tolbert's going to play more. I think the Cowboys probably see him as a more traditional wide receiver and like sticking him in the role vacated by Lamb. But I think we've kind of seen what Jalen Tolbert is at this point, whereas we haven't really seen the upside of a Kevontae Turpin. He's really explosive with the ball in his hands. We know that from his time returning kicks, and he's been a really strong target earner throughout his career. So I don't think he's anything resembling a fantasy starter right now, but I think that he's probably worth adding and seeing if he can grow into more of a full-time role and maybe usurp Tolbert for that second outside wide receiver role with Lamb out.
Normally I wouldn't bring stuff like this up, but when you have a defense as bad as Dallas's is, and when you have an offense seemingly that's as talented as the Cowboys, and I know they're missing Booker, their guard, for a while, which is obviously going to hurt Javonte Williams, who's been very, very good this year. Prescott's an accomplished quarterback. Ferguson and Pickens are legit weapons at their respective positions. When you talk about players or a team that can be in shootouts week after week after week, Turpin versus Tolbert, I think, is an interesting discussion to have as far as which one you want to roster and deploy him, whoever that player is, in the right situations here as well. N712 Hockey. Hey, guys, would you start Sam Darnold tonight or Matthew Stafford on Sunday? This is the question that is facing him. Darnold, obviously, facing the Cardinals tonight. Matthew Stafford is at home against the Colts on Sunday. Darnold v. Stafford. I lean towards old Coyote and say Stafford here. And actually, I should bring this up right now, too. I said I had breaking news before on a stud receiver, and that receiver was Devontae Adams, and I'm trying to find it. Adam Schefter, Jack Miller, has said for a second straight day, Devontae Adams did not practice due to a hamstring injury. So we have to take that into account when we say whether we're going to play Stafford or Darnold. I am concerned about Adams, a guy who's on the wrong side of 30, who's dealing with a soft tissue injury and specifically a muscle that can be tricky for wide receivers. If he doesn't practice tomorrow, this is a problem. And a bigger problem for N712 Hockey, he's got to make this decision tonight. Is he benching Stafford for Darnold against the Cardinals on Thursday Night Football?
I'm going Stafford there. I do think it's right to be a little concerned on Devontae Adams. You never like to see a Thursday hamstring DNP from an older wide receiver. But I think even if Devontae doesn't play, I think I still even lean Stafford. I just think that there's much more scoring upside in that game than Darnold, who can kind of lean on this Seahawks defense a little bit against the Cardinals offense that has not been as high flying as the Colts, which is not something I thought I'd say 3 weeks ago, but here we are.
We had a ton rolling in on Twitch right now. Broly 619, yo, start Kyron Williams, Omarion Hampton, or Jordan Mason. Here's a fun little twist. Non-PPR. We don't often see these questions, but we get it tonight. Hampton at the Giants, Kyron Williams at home against the Colts, and then the other one was Jordan Mason, who is at Pittsburgh, technically at Dublin against the Steelers. PSA, get your lineup set early for that 9:30 a.m. Eastern time kickoff on Sunday. God, you got to bench one of these guys. I like them all. Maybe with Blake Corum eating into the volume for the Rams, you bench Kyren Williams here. I think that's what my instinct is telling me. Hampton doesn't have to deal with Harris. Mason doesn't have to deal with Jones. So I think I might sit Kyren Williams here, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, if this is your decision, you're probably in pretty good shape regardless of who you start. I think I lean Jordan Mason in non-PPR. I just think the rushing workload is going to be so good with Carson Wentz under center. They're going to really lean on Mason, and he's looked really effective so far.
But if you had to sit one of them, because he can start two of them.
I can start two?
Yeah.
I'm probably Mason and Hampton as well. Hampton should be pretty close to maybe like 90+% snaps, which is something we so rarely see at the running back position. But with Hassan Haskins as his direct backup, I think that he could really flirt with that.
So the next one we have is from Drunk Goldfish 00 on Twitch. He's got to pick one of these players: Trey Benson, Calvin Ridley, or Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy, obviously at the Lions. Trey Benson tonight against the Seahawks, and Calvin Ridley, to me, who's at the Texans, unplayable right now. This is Benson, and I don't think twice about it.
Yep, I'm with you. This is the first one where I don't have to look at the projections to tell me Trey Benson. This is pretty clearly Benson.
I can't, Jack. I can't remember if we answered this before. We may have, but Derek Abreu has a chance to start Trey Benson tonight or Chuba Hubbard. This is PPR. I would say Benson over Hubbard here. I think that's what I said before as well.
Yeah, I think Benson.
Okay. And then R. Highland on YouTube. This is another Vikings question. Do you think that Jordan Mason is going to relinquish touches when Aaron Jones returns? And if so, does it go anywhere close to a split? I lean back to what we were talking about all offseason, that this was always going to be a split between Jones and between Mason, given what the draft capital that the Vikings gave up, and then obviously signed Jordan Mason to that contract extension as well. So yeah, I think it's very close to a split. I think Mason gets more of the rushing carries. I think Aaron Jones gets more of the passing catches, as it were. And we go back to how it was in week 1 and week 2. I don't think there's any reason for me to believe it's going to be any different.
Yep, I'm with you. I don't think they're going to just banish Aaron Jones to a handcuff role. I don't think that makes much sense. Even if Mason is the superior rusher at this point, which he might be. I mean, Jones still ran very well last year, but Jones is definitely the superior pass catcher. So I think it makes sense to keep both involved once Jones is back.
Chance F 20,000 again. Tight end question: Sam Laporta or the resurgent Dalton Kincaid? Nate Polvolt from Optimus Fantasy co-hosted this show with me last week, and we were basically talking about how we'd given up on Kincaid. He's a sit, even in tight end premium. He's got to show us something first. Well, Jack, show us something he did, because Kincaid had the best game of his season so far last week, maybe his best game in the last 2 years. And now all of a sudden it is a question about Laporta versus Kincaid. Laporta at home against the Browns. Kincaid obviously in the massive favorites, or playing on the Bills, who are massive favorites at home against the Saints. I'm a weak man. I can't make the call to start Kincaid over Laporta, so I still roll with Laporta here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know it's a tough matchup for Laporta against the Browns defense that's playing awesome, but I think this Detroit offense is so good that it's still going to be able to move the ball and score points. Kincaid definitely has touchdown upside again in this matchup against the Saints, where they're massive favorites. I mean, the Bills are going to be super efficient on offense, but there is a big pass volume question. I mean, they're 17, 16-point favorites. If they get up 14 and a half, we might not see many second half pass attempts. So I like Laporta here.
The conversation about Amari and Hampton that we've had tonight has mostly been like, starter sits or whatever. And people, myself included, I benched him in one league where I was deep at running back last week because I needed to see something first. And now Najee Harris is going to be out for the year. Jim Harbaugh confirming that Harris has torn his Achilles in the week 3 game against the Denver Broncos. Non-contact injury. He's 27 years old. Hopefully he bounces back and finds a home somewhere in the NFL next year. But this is awful. A guy coming off a quote unquote superficial eye injury in a fireworks accident on July 4th. to week 3 in the NFL where he tears his Achilles. The question that we have to ask is not necessarily, hey, is Amari and Hampton suddenly startable again? No. The question I want to ask you, Jack, Jim Harbaugh said Kamani Vidal was the next man up. And I don't know the context behind this quote, but I do know that Vidal was inactive throughout the season, whereas Hassan Haskins was playing in front of him. When I submitted my waiver bids last night in my leagues, I don't know if I put in anything on Vidal, but I did put in some low to modest bids on Hassan Haskins. Always, playing in these deep leagues, you're always trying to get the guy behind the guy. And Haskins, I believe, is the guy behind Hampton. So if anything happens to Hampton, Haskins is going to have maybe not a bell cow role, but definitely a significant role, a flexible role in this Chargers team. That's 3-0 right now and looking very good. Your thoughts on Haskins versus Vidal? If you could only roster one, is it Haskins? And how strong do you believe that Haskins would have a semi-startable role if anything were to happen to Omari and Hampton?
Yeah, I saw that quote and I thought it was pretty interesting given that Haskins had been the one who was actually active. I prefer Haskins for that reason. That being said, if Hampton were to go down, I think it would be a little hard to have much confidence in Haskins as a long-term option. Harbaugh also said in that press conference, I believe, that the Chargers want to look into adding more running back help. So I think that's something to be aware of with Hampton, and definitely something to be aware of with both Haskins and Vidal, that if Hampton goes down, I think they have to add a running back. I do think Haskins is the one to roster, though, given that he's been active. I just think that if Hampton goes down, I don't think the upside is a top 20 running back. I think he's someone who maybe you could start in the flex.
Want to get to a couple more things before we get into our Thursday night football preview here. Ezekiel Estrada, good evening, gents. Kenneth Walker or Trey Benson tonight. He has to start one of these guys. To me, slam dunk, Zach Charbonnet active, which means it's got to be Trey Benson that you start over Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, I'm with you. Charbonnet, full practice all week. Maybe he's a little limited, but we know Trey Benson's not going to be limited. We know that it's his backfield now with Connor out, so it's Benson for me.
Did the Cleveland Browns running back situation get a lot cleaner after the Packers game last week? Quinshon Judkins, Jack, 18 carries, 94 yards. He gets into the end zone. He caught a pass for 1 yard, so granted he wasn't heavily involved there. We know Jerome Ford has still been out there in 2-minute situations, passing down situations. Dylan Sampson still gumming up the works. But Quinshon Judkins, the fact that this guy missed all of training camp, all of preseason, and in his second or third game or whatever it is, he's getting 18 carries. I wonder what this guy is capable of with proper preparation. I've been pretty impressed so far.
Yeah, I was honestly totally shocked at how they used him in week 2. Immediately making him, I think he had 10 of 20 running back carries in week 2, even though he had 2 practices in the previous 2 months, which I thought that was super impressive. I thought week 3 was equally impressive when he had 18 of 19 running back carries for the Browns. Like you said, Jerome Ford's still getting all the pass down, so that kind of limits Judkins' upside a little bit. But I think it's very clear that they view Judkins as their running back of the future. I think the next question is, how much is that actually worth to be the RB1 for the Cleveland Browns? Joe Flacco is the starter for now, but once they go to Dylan Gabriel or even Shedeur Sanders, I think this offense could be really ugly. I think Judkins should still be in line for basically all of the carries because that's what they've indicated so far. But 15 carries on a team that's not going to score a lot of points in a minimal passing game role isn't all that enticing for fantasy.
The last thing I want to bring up is Brian Daboll saying that Tyrone Tracy is expected to miss a few weeks. Very interesting that Tyrone Tracy started that week 3 game. And even though Scadaboo really came on in week 2, now you can't, Daboll can't screw us up with Tyrone Tracy anymore. It's Scadaboo's show. I did put in some meager bids on Devin Singletary just to get the guy behind the guy in New York for some of my deeper leagues. But this is very exciting for Cam Scadaboo. And quite frankly, when I'm looking at my lineups on Saturday and Sunday morning, I feel like I'm breaking ties in favor of Scadaboo as my flex or as my second running back here, especially with Jaxson Dart. This is really, really cool to see. I'm pumped for Scadaboo here.
Yeah, I think Scadaboo is definitely a fantasy starter in week 4. I think Singletary is going to have some involvement. I don't think Brian Daboll wants Scadaboo playing 90% of snaps, like we might see with some of these higher end guys like Campton, as we mentioned previously. I think Singletary is still going to play, but I think Scadaboo's going to be the favorite in all situations. I think early downs, late downs, goal line. I think he's going to have an edge over Singletary in all three facets. I think they trust both running backs in all three facets. So I don't think that it's going to be a 20 touch workload for Scadaboo. But I think he's a fantasy starter.
Yeah, definitely a fantasy star, especially when you get flex out two spots in the FFPC. Not only can you do that on a season-long basis, you can do it in the weekly challenge. The FFPC Week 4 weekly challenge live at myffpc.com. Win up to $2,500, no draft, no salary cap, just pick 10 or 12 players. Whoever you want on your team, you just can't have multiple players from the same team. myffpc.com is where to go for that. We will take a very short break. We'll be back in about a minute and a half with our Thursday night football preview. We've talked about a lot of these players, but some of them we haven't talked about. Torrey Horton, Elijah Arroyo, and FFPC tight end premium leagues. What about Amari DeMarcado as far as rostering him with James Conner out for the year? And we'll talk more about Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, and both defenses tonight. He's Jack Miller from Establish the Run. I'm Eric Balkman. The FFPC Insider Access show rolls on right after this.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. You know, we all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in a million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at myffpc. You can go out and you can take the number one running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at: $35, $100, or $200 buy-in. And you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high-stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket, and put that in my bio. FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
Always good to hear from Andrew Cooper from Fantasy Alarm, and check that out, myffpc.com, your home for the FFPC Week 4 Weekly Challenge. $2,500 at stake, 10, 30, 100-team leagues, 1 player per team. Just submit your lineup. Easy to do, very simple to do, and you can check that out right now at myffpc.com. Getting into our Thursday night football preview here tonight with the Seahawks and Cardinals, as I'm trying to bring up my Prime Video right now, talking with Jack Miller at JackMiller02 on the X, of course, Established the Run's own. Jack, this is a silly thing for me to bring up. I always ask about Twitter handles. You're the second Jack Miller, Jack Miller 02. Was Jack Miller 00 taken, 01 taken? What's the 02 mean at the end?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, there's a lot of Jack Millers out there. It's not the most unique name. And so I tried to go Jack Miller 01 because I was born in 2001.
Got it.
But that was taken, and so I kind of just went up 1.
02. Sometimes it's that easy, and it's that simple to understand here. Let's get into our Thursday night football preview here. Mr. Bakes a Lot is going to lead us off with a starter sit question here. He's got a choice between Trevion Henderson and Zach Charbonnet tonight. I don't like either one of these guys tonight at all, quite frankly, Jack. But I understand, the situation that he might be in with the fumbles to Stevenson and Gibson last week. I think the choice should be Henderson here for both New England and for Mr. Bakes a Lot. But with Vrabel and McDaniel not liking to play rookies, I don't know, man. I really don't know what to expect from Henderson now. I know after the fumble by Gibson, he was getting a ton of snaps late. So maybe it's Henderson over Charbonnet tonight. But I apologize, Mr. Bakes a lot. I don't have a really good answer for you here.
Yeah, I think it's Henderson. I also think the floor on both of these guys is really low. We've seen before the Ramondre and Antonio Gibson fumbles that the Patriots were basically treating Henderson like their RB3 last week. So the floor is low if they just go back into that rotation. And then for Charbonnet, obviously he missed last week. I don't think he's going to be super limited since he fully practiced the entire week, but there's always some risk with guys coming back from injury that they get eased in a little bit. So I think the floor is really low. I think Henderson has probably a higher ceiling if they do decide to give him this backfield in a perfect matchup against this Carolina defense.
The Seattle offense is what I want to talk about here first. Darnold has really started to come alive the last week or two. He's gotten progressively better. I think he's rosterable. I'm actually starting him in a league over Jake Browning, where my only quarterback prior to week 3 was Joe Burrow, which I screwed that up there. So I picked up Darnold this week. I'm playing him over Browning, but I think he's more of a super flex play. My concern with Darnold this year coming in was was this guy just a Kevin O'Connell product? Was he a product of Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, all the Aaron Jones and all these guys? And the fact that he gets Jaxson Smith-Njigba to lean on, I think has been really, really good for him. Your long-term outlook on Darnold, is this a guy that could threaten being a top 15 quarterback this year, or is he buried into top 25?
I wouldn't go as far as top 25. I don't think he's quite top 15. I know he had a really good last week. That was also against the Saints. And I think that in an ideal world, this offense still wants to lean on the run. So I think Darnold is like a serviceable QB2. But I don't think he's a guy I'd feel awesome trotting out in one quarterback leagues.
Yeah, no, trust me, I feel really crappy about it. I don't like starting Darnold tonight at all. This is my whole thing. I hate quarterbacks in single quarterback leagues unless I'm getting a really elite guy, and then I feel like I don't need a backup. And clearly, when you have Joe Burrow, you need a backup, and I didn't do that. So now it's going to be on the arm of Sam Darnold to try to carry me to victory in week 4. The backfield that will be behind him, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. We talked a lot about these guys tonight. Kenneth Walker had the backfield to himself last week, and obviously the 2 touchdowns helped, but he was very inefficient with his touches. Charbonnet comes back tonight. He's active. I would imagine that he has a significant role. Can you make the case in the right situation? Not necessarily that you'd have both these guys on the same team, Jack, but if you had them on separate teams, are they both flexible tonight?
I think Walker is a lot more flexible than Charbonnet, just with Charbonnet coming off the injury. I think the floor is pretty low. I wouldn't feel awesome about either of them because with Walker, you do still have the fact that Charbonnet was ahead in pretty much every usage metric during the first 2 games. I know Walker was more effective during those 2 games, but I mean, I think it's going to be close to a 50-50 split again. Probably Walker slightly ahead with Charbonnet coming back from an injury. But the Seahawks also just have not thrown the ball to running backs like we're used to seeing last year. I don't have their exact running back target share offhand, but it was above league average. This year, Zach Charbonnet doesn't have a target yet, even though he's played quite a bit. Kenneth Walker.
That's mind-boggling, by the way.
Right? Yeah, it's crazy. And Kenneth Walker had 0 targets last week. George Halani, I think, had a couple targets, but they came from Drew Lock. So, I mean, so far when Sam Darnold has been the quarterback, this offense just has not thrown to running backs very much. And that's obviously pretty bad news for both of them.
Starter sit question here from Mr. Bakes a lot. This is full PPR. He's got to sit one of these guys, Zach Charbonnet, Braylon Allen, or Tyler Algier. You have to sit one of these guys. For me, I think it's Braylon Allen, Jack.
I think it is too. Obviously, you know this, but the floor is really low for all of these guys. I think Charbonnet is the most game script proof. Braylon Allen and Algier, we've seen really have their snaps cut down in negative game script. I think that's more of an issue with the Jets. So it's Charbonnet and Braylon Allen for me.
Has the dustiness or perhaps the non-usage from Alvin Kamara that you've seen so far, Is that enough for you to say Trey Benson over Kamara tonight? Because that's what J.J. Keats is facing right now. Got to figure out whether Trey Benson or Alvin Kamara is the smartest start in week 4.
I think it's Benson. Kamara just uncharacteristically has not gotten targets so far. Game script should keep the Saints from getting too many like team running back carries, and game script could also get Kamara out of the game early. There's just some risk of a quick hook if things really go south for the Saints, which with a 16.5 point spread, it very easily could. Benson seems more insured in his role. He's going to get carries. He's going to get targets, even if DeMarcado plays a little bit of the passing downs. I like Benson here.
Dare I say, is Alvin Kamara finally losing a step? Could be Permar99 saying Kamara has lost juice out of his breaks. That could be a possibility. The other one that I want to get to here, Fly Nelly Fly on Twitch, DJ Moore or Trey Benson. Moore is at the Las Vegas Raiders here. A lot of Benson questions tonight, but I'm still rolling with Benson here over DJ Moore, Jack.
Yeah, this one's Benson for me. DJ Moore's role just has not been what it has been in previous years, and honestly what I expected it to be going into the year. It really seems like Rome Odunze has taken a strong grasp of the wide receiver 1 role. So I like Benson here for sure.
Maybe I'm reaching on this next one, but Torrey Horton has actually shown out here both on special teams and on offense the last couple of weeks. He had no targets against the Niners in week 1, 2 for 32 and a touchdown in week 2, 3 for 32 and a touchdown in week 3. Am I stretching to say he might be a flex tonight against Arizona?
I think it's a little early for Horton. I do like him long-term. We've seen Cooper Kupp fade over the second half of seasons before. He also has an injury history, so there's definitely a world in which Horton ends up as the wide receiver 2 for the Seahawks over the second half of the year. But right now, Kupp is still pretty locked into that second wide receiver role, I think. And so I think Horton is a good hold, but probably not yet a good start.
Permar99, Torrey is a god, matter of time. Boy, Permar, I hope you're right for my dynasty team's sake, because I got a lot of Torrey Horton in the 4th round of rookie drafts this year. We'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens at tight end. Who would you rather roster the rest of the season? Is it simply the upside play with Elijah Arroyo, or would you rather take the veteran in A.J. Barner, who's been getting out there? I guess Arroyo has been making some waves a little bit the last week or two, but what would you think here, Jack? Are you just simply going with the upside with Arroyo?
Yeah, it's the upside for me. I know Barner is the better role right now, but I don't think either of these roles are particularly enticing, and this is kind of A.J. Barner's role while Arroyo is still getting his feet wet in the NFL. So I definitely prefer the upside, which, I mean, it might not materialize. He's not as good of a blocker as Barner, and I think the Seahawks offense really values that. So I don't know about the probability of Arroyo actually hitting, but if I had to pick one, it's definitely Arroyo just as an upside shot.
Yeah, for the guys on the end of your bench, you always want the upside there. So for me, it's totally Arroyo. This is an interesting one from Fly Nelly Fly. Torrey Horton or Sterling Shepard this week. I don't, obviously, as you'll point out shortly, both low floors here, but we don't know what's going on with Tampa. Evans not expected to play. We know Ibuka's dinged up. And what's going on with Chris Godwin? Because if he doesn't play, all of a sudden Shepard looks a lot better. He's got to make the decision in the next couple of minutes. Horton or Shepard, Jack?
Yeah, I think I go Shepard. I don't feel awesome recommending Sterling Shepard in the year 2025, right. But Evans is obviously out. Godwin didn't practice today. The Bucs are saying it's precautionary, so I'm not going to read too much into that until I see his practice status for tomorrow. I think he's going to play, but it was such a serious injury. He's missed so much time. I can't imagine he's anything close to a full role, and he's probably not like his usual self from an efficiency standpoint either. So I think Shepard is probably the wide receiver 2 for this Tampa offense in week 4, and so I go Shepard.
We're coming up on kickoff here, so I want to get this last thing in, and then I want to expand this out to some more of a wide scoping questions on Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, Trey Benson, so on and so forth. The defenses tonight, for those who are looking at streaming, like me, when it comes to Seattle and Arizona, I actually have both of these teams going, both of these defenses going in a few different leagues tonight. Do you have a feeling, like, what's your take on starting Seattle or the Arizona defense tonight as far as streaming goes for defenses?
Yeah, I think both are fine. The total's not too high. I prefer Seattle just because it's a better defense. The Seahawks are also very small favorites, so the Panthers or the Cardinals are like implied for marginally fewer points. But yeah, I think both are fine in a low total game. That could be kind of a slog, but I prefer Seattle if I was given the option.
Your two-screen experience is about to start. Jack and I will take you through the first quarter here tonight, let you know what's going on with fantasy takes on each and every drive and play tonight as the Seahawks and Cardinals set to kick off in just a couple of minutes here. Speaking of these two teams, I think I've delved into everything I want to talk about with Seattle, but the Cardinals, I think, are a conundrum right now, man. Like Kyler Murray, there's been people, it seems like people in the industry, people I've talked to, high stakes players I've talked to, seemingly since 2023, they have said, I'm out on Kyler Murray. I'm just done. We've seen the best of him. We've seen what he can do, and I just don't envision him taking this next step forward here tonight, or this year, I should say. Kyler Murray said before the start of the season that he was going to run more this year, which I think I'd have to check the stats. I think he has been running a little bit more, but a lot of the same stuff we've been saying about Kyler Murray the last couple of years, we're saying again already in 2025 here in late September. Is this deja vu again for Kyler Murray, that he's just going to be this type of player that has this tantalizing upside, but just never seems to deliver on it from a fantasy standpoint?
Yeah, I think we know what Kyler Murray is at this point. And I think it's a top 12 fantasy quarterback. I think it's a usable fantasy quarterback and someone that should be rostered in pretty much every league. But I don't think he's going to ever challenge a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen for really the upper echelon of fantasy quarterbacking. With that being said, I think that's okay. Like, I think most of the guys around him, like Patrick Mahomes, I don't think is ever going to challenge those guys again. I don't think Jared Goff, like there's so many guys who are fine fantasy starters who just don't have the upside to challenge the elites, just because the elites at quarterback are so good now with how much they run. Kyler is running a little bit more this year, or at least they're designing a little more for him this year. I'm not sure on the scrambles exactly, but his designed run rate is up. So yeah, I think Kyler's a fine fantasy starter. I don't think he has like top 3 upside.
And there's value in that, as you pointed out. For people who like waiting on quarterbacks, who don't want to invest in quarterbacks in single quarterback leagues, I think Kyler Murray is a perfect quarterback to have on your team, where if you don't have a better matchup this week, chances are, because of Murray's running ability, he's going to provide you with a nice fantasy floor. So that makes sense there. Let's go to Marvin Harrison next, who just first play from scrimmage, he catches an 8-yard pass from Kyler Murray. So Harrison obviously off on the right foot, little wide receiver screen as he gets out of bounds. And oh my God, Jack, do you have this game on right now? Are you watching this? Hold on, you might be on mute, or you're.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I'm not watching it.
Okay,
I don't have the TV, but I have the ESPN Gamecast up.
Okay, perfect. But the reason I bring this up, the Cardinals are wearing these all white uniforms, white helmets, red socks, and the Cardinal, it's got this beautiful tinge of like red and orange. Like it's really appealing to the eye, or maybe I'm just off base on this, but I think it's really, really cool. Trey McBride catching a pass here on second down for a first down.
Have they shown the end zones yet? I don't know like what the theme is tonight for Arizona, but they painted the end zones pretty like special too. So I don't know what the occasion is, but they're doing something different, and it looks pretty cool.
The logo at midfield is pretty cool. The logo at midfield is the same logo as what's on the helmet right now. And you're right, I have not seen the end zones yet, as Trey Benson rushes for no gain on 1st and 10. I have not seen the end zones to see what they're doing there. But yeah, it's very aesthetically pleasing to the eye. Yes, I'm looking at right now. It's got the star with the rays coming out of it, the red and orange rays coming out. It's very cool. So anybody who is blind, my apologies. You will not enjoy this game to the full effect tonight, because it is very cool what we're seeing here tonight with the Cardinals and Seahawks. Okay. Kyler Murray, a 3-yard carry, and it is 2nd and 10 from the Arizona 41. I beg your pardon, it is 3rd and 7 from the Arizona 44 as the Cardinals try to keep this drive going. Marvin Harrison catches this pass on the first play from scrimmage for 8 yards. What's wrong with him, Jack? I felt like the early part of drafting season, I spent a good part of my podcast explaining away Harrison. We expected too much year one. They misused him in his rookie year. The schedule gets easier in year two. All these things. And I feel like over the course of the 3 or 4 weeks of the season, all these things are still true. Anybody who was against Marvin Harrison this year would have told you that the Cardinals did nothing to change anything that would make it better for Marvin Harrison this year, that would, even make it different. Like everything stayed the same. So why should we expect anything different? And I think through 3 weeks that's largely been true. But I think you can make a case that there's other stuff going on. I mean, I don't know how he dropped that pass last week, that wide open pass that certainly if he catches that, we have a much more different narrative we're talking about in our week 4 previews. But he didn't catch it. And as a result, we're down on Harrison again. Can you offer up anything positive about Harrison? And conversely, maybe this is just who he is. I don't know. Your thoughts on Harrison?
Yeah, I don't really know either. And everyone saw the wide open drop that would have been a big gain, if not a touchdown. But he also had another drop that was maybe a little bit more difficult, but it would have been a long touchdown. The play didn't count because some other Cardinals receiver, I assume it was like Michael Wilson or something, got interfered with. But Wilson had an easy touchdown go through his hands too. I can't really explain it. I mean, I don't want to speculate too much. Is he hurt? Is it mental at this point? I don't really know. I guess the positives are that while he has not shown like top tier upside, the volume is still respectable. He had a 21% target share as a rookie. He's at 19% through 3 games this year. That's still fine volume. It's just not what was expected of him coming out of college, hyped as this generational wide receiver prospect. Like, he's still a usable fantasy asset, I think. It's just we were hoping he'd take a step forward, and through 3 games, we haven't seen it yet.
The running back situation changed from week 3 to week 4 here, with Trey Benson now coming up to be the lead running back. Guys like Amari DeMarcado, Bam Knight, Michael Carter falling in behind him. Our best wishes go out to James Conner for a fast and speedy recovery. Think about everything that guy's been through in his life. Having this ankle injury is probably nothing for him, so he's going to fight through it and hopefully get back on the field for week 1 next year. You had some interesting things to say about Trey Benson on the Establish the Run updated 150 podcast that came out this week. And I think this is prescient for anybody thinking that, it's Trey Benson bell cow season. Yeah, it could be, but there's some other things to take into account before we just all of a sudden anoint Benson as this guy that's going to be getting all these targets, all these snaps, and all this fantasy production.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. I haven't had a play update, but it's 3rd and 7 for the Cardinals right now. Is it Benson out there? Can you see, or is it?
I'll interrupt you. The play happened a long time ago. I have the ESPN thing up too. I don't know why it's not updating. Murray, I didn't see who the running back was. Murray threw a deep pass, sort of like a deep out or a deep slant to, I think it was Michael Wilson. It was incomplete. And they have since punted, and now Darnold is taking over for the Seahawks. But I did not see what running back was out there on 3rd and long. Got it.
I think Nathan Yonke, the PFF guy who's really good with the snap counts, it was DeMarcado out there on 3rd down. Previously, we had seen the Cardinals use Benson on 3rd down, and so that was kind of the upside case for him. That was why I was pretty bullish on him after week 1. I thought they're finally using Benson on 3rd down. If James Conner goes down, all of a sudden we've got a 3-down workload. It seems like Arizona wants to involve 2 running backs regardless, so I think now that Benson is in the Conner role, DeMarcado is going to be in the role that was previously Benson's role. I do think Benson has a better role than Conner had because DeMarcado is going to take fewer carries from Benson than Benson was taking from Conner. So it's a great role for Benson. I don't think it's like a 3-down role like we might see from Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey, Omarion Hampton. But it's still a strong role. But I think DeMarcado is pretty much confined into that pass game role now.
Kenneth Walker, no gain on 1st down, and then a Kenneth Walker screen catch for 29 yards. Jackson Smith-Njigba follows up with a 2-yard catch from Sam Darnold. 2nd and 8 now from the Seattle 45 as they are trying to make some headway down the field. So if you are trying to get the guy behind the guy, is DeMarcado the guy? I mean, you're not going after Michael Carter. You're not going after Bam Knight or anything like that. If anything were to happen to Benson as it stands right now, DeMarcado would probably be the guy in obviously what would be a timeshare, but he'd be getting the lion's share of the snaps, I would think.
I think it's tough to tell. I think they might just like DeMarcado as the pass down guy. If Benson goes down, I could see Bam Knight and Michael Carter splitting the early down stuff, and DeMarcado probably gets an uptick in that area, but I don't really think it would be enough to make him a fantasy starter. So if Benson goes down, I think it would kind of be like a really messy three-way split for touches there.
And maybe wheels up for Harrison, McBride, and Wilson at that point too. So we will see what happens with that. So that is your preview of the Seahawks and Cardinals. 10-17 to go in the first quarter. It is now a third down that the Seahawks are facing after a 3-yard loss from Kenneth Walker on a play that was blown up in the middle by that Cardinals defensive line. 3rd and 10 now, beg your pardon, as we tick under 10 minutes to go in the first quarter. We'll have full coverage of this game for you here through the remainder of the show, which, my God, we only got about half hour left and we got a ton of start sits yet for everybody tonight. Want to remind everybody the FFPC Weekly Challenge is live right now. You cannot play in the Thursday Weekly Challenge anymore because the Thursday night game started. However, we do have a Sunday game going on right now that will lock at 1 p.m. Eastern time. You are looking at $2,500 is the big money that you can win this week. 10, 30, and 100 team contests, depending upon what you want to play in there. Just pick 10 players, or if you want to play with kickers and defenses, you can pick 12 players. No duplications on teams. If you want Aaron Rodgers, you can't have Jaylen Warren. If you want Justin Jefferson, you can't have Jordan Mason. MyFFPC.com is where to go for that, MyFFPC.com. The Seahawks have converted on, I beg your pardon, they did not convert on 3rd down. It was a 10-yard catch by Torrey Horton from Sam Darnold. They go for it on 4th and 1, and Zach Charbonnet is stuffed for no gain as the Cardinals now take over from their own 48, 9:02 to the first quarter. They're going to take a break on Prime Video. We're going to take a break right here. We'll be back before they are, answering your start and sit questions right here on the Better Sports Network. It is FFPC Insider Access with Eric Balkman and Jack Miller from Establish the Run. Don't go anywhere. We're helping you out for your Week 4 teams right after this.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in 1 million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at MyFFPC. You can go out and you can take the number 1 running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at: $35, $100, or $200 buy-in. And you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket and put that in my bio. FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
Want to welcome you back to FFPC Insider Access here live on the Better Sports Network for Fantasy Football Night in America. We get about a half hour left to answer your start-sit questions. Jack Miller from Establish the Run hopping aboard tonight to try to tackle Week 4 and try to get ahead of everything to make sure that you're setting yourself up for the best possible success going forward this season. In fact, I want to remind everybody, myffpc.com is where to go for week 4 success in the weekly challenge. 10, 30, 100-team contest. $2,500 is much you can win. One player per NFL team. That's at myffpc.com. No draft, no salary cap, just fun. Pick your players and get it going there at myffpc.com. The Cardinals have thrown an incomplete pass to Trey McBride on first down, and they will have it 2nd and 10 from their own 48 here. Jack, a question from Kai Flynn on YouTube has a trade question. Should Kai trade Bijan Robinson and Ladd McConkey and getting Jonathan Taylor and Zay Flowers? Which side of that trade would you rather be on, given that you're giving up a running back and a receiver to get a running back and wide receiver?
Yeah, I think it's pretty close, but I think at this point, Jonathan Taylor is probably the most valuable asset in fantasy football. And so it's, with how disappointing Ladd has been as well, I think it's JT and Flowers for me.
I would agree with you. I think that's where I roll with it. Although it is very close, because I think Taylor is at the peak of his powers right now, and Bijan Robinson you might be getting at a bit of a discount. So we'll see what happens there. We have to see what's happening in this game right now. Kyler Murray has just thrown an interception to the Seattle defense, and it appears, according to the Cardinals defenders, that whoever picked him off, I think it was the safety, one of the safeties, has fumbled the football on the return. The Cardinals are saying they have it, and the referee agrees the Cardinals do have it off the fumble from the Seattle Seahawks safety that picked it off. This was Bryant. And who was this? Was this Michael Wilson? No, it was, oh my goodness, this is close because it almost looks like he slid down and then lost the football. Did he give himself up? I'm sure they're going to look at this here. And the Cardinals with a recovery off the Bryant interception fumble from the Kyler Murray interception. Okay, let's move forward here with some starter set questions. Some of these guys we've tackled, some of these guys we haven't. But we're going to pair them up tonight here and help you out the best we can. Would you rather start I beg your pardon. Would you rather start Alvin Kamara or Jaylen Warren this week? Jaylen Warren is in Dublin against the Vikings on Sunday morning. Alvin Kamara is going to be at the Buffalo Bills in what should be a heavy passing volume game for Rattler. However, the target's don't necessarily have been existent for Alvin Kamara so far this year.
Yeah, this would be Jaylen Warren for me. He's been the early down back for Pittsburgh all year. It seems like as of the past couple weeks, he's taken over for Kenneth Gainwell on pass downs too, and it seems like he's just kind of the 3-down guy for the Steelers at the moment. He hasn't been as efficient as we're used to seeing from Jaylen Warren, but I mean, it's not like Kamara's been particularly efficient either, and it's not like we can expect Kamara to be super efficient in this game environment. So I think Warren here.
Are you I said at the start of the year and throughout drafting season, Jack, that I thought we could squeeze one more year of fantasy goodness out of Alvin Kamara in New Orleans. I'm starting to doubt that statement. What about you? Is this it for Kamara? Is he dust? Is this a player that has been drafted as sort of like a high-end running back too that's going to slip into borderline flex going forward?
Yeah, he might be. It's mostly the lack of targets that's concerning for me, and it's pretty strange with just how consistent he's been as a pass catcher throughout his entire career. I mean, even if he's lost a step, you'd think that they'd make more of an effort to get him the ball, but they just haven't so far. And I think that has to rebound at some point, but will it rebound to the levels we're used to seeing from Alvin Kamara? Probably not, just given how slow of a start it's been. I still think Kamara's a fantasy starter. I just think that maybe relative to preseason expectations, we need to temper how we look at him moving forward.
The question that we have from Ray C. And Ray, I think you might have posted something in YouTube earlier that I made a mental note that we were going to get back to, and I don't know if we ever did. So if you asked us something tonight that I didn't bring up, please post it again. But right now we'll answer your starter sit question here. He needs to bench one of these guys here, Jack. Is it Teteroa McMillan, who is at New England this week? Is it Emeka Egbuka, who is at home against the Eagles? Or is it J.K. Dobbins, who is at home against the Bengals? I know he's got the best matchup, but in full PPR, I think it's Dobbins is the one I'm benching. I'm playing McMillan. I'm playing Egbuka. A lot of question marks with the Tampa wide receivers. You know, I don't even think Egbuka's listed on the injury report, so I really like him this week. Dobbins is the guy I probably sit, although I could easily be wrong on this.
Yeah, it's definitely a great spot for Dobbins as big favorites over Cincinnati. I do think you have to sit him with these two receivers as your other option. I mean, Egbuka is the easy first option for me. I think with Evans out and with Godwin probably operating at far below 100%,
Yeah.
I think that he should get peppered with targets. And then it comes down to McMillan and Dobbins. And McMillan's just getting so many targets, and he's looked really good. I think that maybe this could be the spot where he finally turns that into a big fantasy outing. So I'm going with the rookie receivers.
The situation with this one is something Jack and I are of the same mind on. I just watched a replay of that interception that Kyler Murray threw. I don't know. I think it was intended for Marvin Harrison, but it was a really bad pass, bad decision. They reviewed it. They upheld the ruling. It is Arizona football, and Trey Benson gets a 12-yard rush right away on first down as they plunge in to Seattle territory. He ends up catching a pass for 4 yards on the very next play, but Tyreek Woolen flagged for a face mask penalty as well. Tack on 15 yards, and the Cardinals now have it 1st and 10 at the Seattle 41 with 8:10 to go in the first quarter. Nick Chubb or Isaiah Pacheco is our next starter sit here. Limited upside with both of these guys, and quite frankly, limited floors as well. Somebody asked me I was doing a hit on another radio station earlier this morning. Somebody asked me, what do I do with Isaiah Pacheco right now? And the best thing I could say, Jack, was don't cut him, but I'm certainly not starting him right now. Nick Chubb, I think Woody Marks is working his way into that conversation as well in the backfield. If you have to start one of them this week, certainly exhaust all other possibilities first. But I still lean towards Chubb over Pacheco this week.
Yeah, it's Chubb for me too. The Texans finally should be able to move the ball a little bit against the Titans. They're big favorites here. I think Woody Marks is ascending. I think that eventually he could really usurp Chubb as the RB1. But I think for now, Chubb is still the preferred option on early downs. And I think that in positive game script, he should still be in line for double-digit carries. So it's Chubb for me over Pacheco.
Speaking of the Texans ground game, I noticed Joe Mixon was cut in some of my 12-team, 20-man roster leagues. Do I need to find a roster spot for him in that deep of a league, or do I just continue to leave him on the waiver wire?
I think you can leave him on the waiver wire. I don't think he's going to play this year.
Okay. But let me ask you this, Jack, put you on the spot. Percentage chance that Joe Mixon takes at least one snap in the regular season this year? Is it less than 20? Is it less than 20%?
It might be. I've just heard some pretty bad stuff. So,
I've heard nothing, which makes me think it's really bad, right?
Yeah, I think he's a pretty big underdog to play.
The Cincinnati Bengals will continue their season in week 4 in Denver, the Mile High City. Ray C wants to know, what are we expecting from the Bengals offense going forward, specifically Jamar Chase in Denver? I don't believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I don't believe Patrick Surtain travels with the opponent's best wide receiver. So certainly they can scheme up Jamar Chase, but it was really bad against Minnesota this past week. I'm of the belief that that's probably Browning's worst game of the season. I think better things are ahead from the Bengals, but perhaps I'm being too much of a cockeyed optimist here, Jack. What do you think about the Bengals going forward, and then specifically against the Broncos in week 4?
Yeah, I think Surtain does shadow a pretty decent amount. So I'm sure the Bengals will try to get creative and get him away from Surtain. But I mean, it is like Surtain is the defensive player of the year, but it's still Jamar Chase. I don't think it's like Surtain's going to totally shut him down and limit him to 0. It's definitely a downgrade relative to most matchups, though. And with Burrow out, it's definitely a downgrade relative to where we were taking Chase in the preseason. I do think that Chase is probably less impacted than someone like T. Higgins, who's, I think, more dependent on Joe Burrow moving the ball and scoring points and getting touchdowns, whereas Chase is more of a playmaker with the ball in his hand. So as long as Browning can get him the ball 5 yards down the field, there's some chance Ja'Marr Chase makes the play. Whereas if T. Higgins catches the ball 5 yards down the field, it's probably not going much further. I think Chase, he's still a very clear fantasy starter. Like, you're never benching Ja'Marr Chase regardless of who's under center. I think he's probably like a low-end wide receiver one.
Higgins is the guy. He's the guy you consider benching, right? I've already benched him in a couple of leagues this week. He's not the slam dunk start that he was before. You got to have one hell of a team to be benching Ja'Marr Chase, and quite frankly, if you have that team, you need to up your game and join the FFPC or something like that next year, because it's not even fun when you have that deep of a wide receiver core that you could consider benching Ja'Marr Chase. Speaking of stagnating here, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, the Cardinals are attempting a 32-yard field goal attempt here. Greg Dortch with a couple of passes, 1 for 2 yards, 1 for 9 yards. There was a false start penalty that moved the Cardinals back. Trey McBride did get a 4-yard catch on this drive as well. Chad Ryland has nailed the 33-yard field goal as the Cardinals have taken a 3-0 lead with 4:09 to go in the first quarter. Jack and I will be with you through the remainder of the first quarter tonight. Flacco is king on YouTube. Jack has a question. This is interesting. He needs one of Ramondre Stevenson, Bashal Tutin, Devin Singletary, Ray Davis. This is full PPR, and this is his number 2 spot for running back. He does admit that it is gross, and yes, it is gross. I'm eliminating Singletary, even with the purported big-time rushing second half that the Bills should have against the Saints. I'm eliminating Ray Davis. This comes down to Stevenson or Tutin for me. I lean towards Stevenson, but I can be persuaded if you want to make an argument for Tutin.
Yeah, I think you're right to eliminate Singletary and Ray Davis. I think I lean Ramondre as well. I mean, it's a really good matchup. That, like we've said this a few times, but the floor is nothing here. If Vrabel decides to teach him a lesson after 2 fumbles last week, there's some chance they lean fully into Travion Henderson. But I mean, when these are the other options, it's not like the other guys have a very stable floor either. And so the Patriots should be able to run the ball against this Carolina defense, like pretty much everyone has been able to so far. So it's still Mondre for me.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't overthink it. Tutin's on the injury report as well. Not saying that he's not going to play. Your thoughts, Jack? I don't know if you took a strong stance on this Jacksonville running back situation prior to the start of the season, but obviously it's changed with the Tank Bigsby trade. What are you looking at from Jacksonville right now? Is this ETN's backfield, or do you think Tutin is going to be taking it away from him before the calendar turns to 2026?
I think it's ETN's backfield right now for sure. I think ETN's like a definite fantasy starter in the short term. Tutin has looked really good so far, and I thought it was meaningful that they gave Tutin a goal line carry. I think it was from like the 1 yard line last week, and he scored on it. And then there was that screen pass that everyone saw in week 2 where he made the defender miss and trotted in. So I really like Tutin as an upside shot. I was hopeful that he would really ascend more than he did in week 3 from a usage standpoint. We didn't really see the role grow like I was hoping it would. But I think he's still like a really strong hold. I think we've seen ETN the past few years. We've seen ETN show upside before, so I don't want to come off as anti-ETN and more so pro-Tutin. But I think both are good. I think ETN's a definite fantasy starter right now. I think ETN is a good hold. I think he's a tough buy right now since he scored a touchdown in back-to-back weeks. But if we ever get a Tutin floor game, I think he makes sense as a buy candidate.
If ETN were to go down, is this like Tutin 80% of the snap share with LaQuint Allen getting 20%, or how would you think that would play out? And I'm only asking this for people who are wondering what they have in Tutin on their bench right now.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty much a Tutin rocket ship. They're giving LaQuint Allen the pass downs. I imagine he'd keep that role if ETN goes down, but the Jaguars are still going to throw to their running backs on early downs. It's kind of similar to Trey Benson, where LaQuint Allen is the Amari DeMercado, but Bashal Tutin would be the Trey Benson, and that's a very valuable fantasy starter.
Kenneth Walker is really off to a great start tonight as he busts off on 1st and 10 for the Seattle Seahawks, a 21-yard run that gets him out of bounds at the Arizona 35. So to recap so far, Kenneth Walker tonight, 4 carries, 27 yards. He also has a 29-yard catch, as well as the Seahawks march down the field against the Cardinals here, trying to tie this game up or maybe even take the lead. Want to shift over to wide receiver here for you, Jack. This is a fun one this week. Who would you rather start? And again, a question that we didn't think we'd be asking ourselves here in September. Quentin Johnston at the Giants or DJ Moore against the Raiders in Las Vegas?
It's Johnston for me, which I did not really think I'd be saying 3 weeks ago. But DJ Moore just has not had the role we're used to seeing from him. I think Johnston has a higher target share so far on an offense that's throwing significantly more and significantly more efficiently, at least when they're not playing the Cowboys' quote-unquote defense. So I definitely like QJ over DJ Moore.
Yeah, it's crazy. These are two guys trending in the or different directions, I should say. DJ Moore probably not in the right one. Think about what Luther Burden was able to do last week, not only on that big flea flicker, but a couple other plays as well. Roma Dunze ascending to sort of this quasi number one role for the Bears. And then you have Quentin Johnston, who isn't going away. I've made the case that Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey are a little bit more of duplication of skills. And as a result, Quentin Johnston probably gets on the field maybe more than he should. But what he's able to do on the outside is something that Allen can no longer do. And maybe Ladd McConkey is not able to do. I don't know. But he's out there quite a bit. I'm with you. I'm playing Johnston over DJ Moore this week. I don't want to say I'm not thinking twice about it, but I feel pretty good about this decision. We have another Kenneth Walker run for 8 yards and a Cooper Kupp sighting all the way down to the 16-yard line for Arizona. It is a 11-yard catch for Cooper Kupp on 3rd and 2, and now the Cardinals have it 1st and 10 at the no, I take that back. They no longer have it 1st and 10. Sam Darnold has thrown a touchdown. It is not to Kupp. It is not to Smith and Jigba, Walker, Charbonnet, or even Elijah Arroyo. A.J. Barner gets in the end zone on a 16-yard touchdown catch from Sam Darnold. The Seahawks have taken the lead. Nice little wheel/fade route there for A.J. Barner. Well set up. He was open, and the Seahawks have a 6-3 lead. The extra point is pending. The Seahawks have completed the drive, 9 plays, 77 yards. The Jason Myers extra point is good. 3:04 to go in the first quarter. The Seahawks now on top of the Cardinals, 7-3. Jerry Jeudy and Wan'Dale Robinson. A lot of people will have both these players on their team, and they're in a conundrum this week based on what Jeudy did at the end of last year, what he's doing this year, and then what Wan'Dale Robinson did in week 2. My God. The monkey wrench into this conversation right now, Jack, is Jaxson Dart starting now for the Giants this week. And I know a lot of people believe that this is a really, really good thing for Wan'Dale Robinson. It may or may not be. I don't know. They get the Chargers this week at home. Jerry Jeudy travels to Detroit to take on that Lions defense. You can only play one, Jeudy or Robinson.
I think it's Wan'Dale for me. The average depth of target for Wan'Dale has gone from, let me pull up exactly what it was. It was 5.1 last year, 5.5 the year prior. It was 3.3 in week 1. In week 2, it was 16.7. And then last week it was 21.3. So we know that he's a strong target earner, and they're finally actually throwing the ball down the field to him. Obviously didn't really complete those passes last week, but in week 2, we saw the upside case. And Jeudy has not really earned targets at the level we saw over the second half of last year. It's pretty crowded there with Tillman, with Njoku, with Fannin. Jerome Ford's a little bit involved too. So I like Wan'Dale, even though I don't think the matchup is great for Dart against this Chargers defense. But I think the volume and now the better usage from a downfield perspective makes me lean Wan'Dale Robinson.
The ADOT for Robinson is not something I had on my bingo card this year. Certainly, we have not seen him used like this since his days as a Kentucky Wildcat, and it's been very pleasant for us. We would love to see it, obviously, if we have Robinson on our team. Regarding the targets with Jeudy, he's gone 8-8-5. Only 5 targets against the Packers last week. He only caught 1 of those passes, but that was kind of a knockdown, slug it out, drag it out type game. And he goes to Detroit this week where I think they're going to be passing. But to your point, maybe it just means more for Fannin. Maybe it means more for Njoku and players like that. Tillman, you think about Jerome Ford and all these players that Flacco's been throwing to this year. I think I'm with you. I think I'm starting Robinson over Judy. If for no other fact, and I always bring this back, and this is why I'm not a fantasy analyst, fantasy football is supposed to be fun. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is a more fun start with Jaxson Dart throwing to him this week over Jerry Jeudy. So that's the way I lean on that. Over to tight ends. Let's get to Nashville and talk about Chig Okonkwo this week. A tight end that I think a lot of pundits out there are expecting bigger things, predicting bigger things for him as the season goes on. He gets a tough matchup in Houston this week against that Texans defense. Brenton Strange, who's been very good so far for the Jaguars, especially last week, 6 for 61, 62, something like that. He goes to San Francisco. So they're both on the road. You can only pick one. I feel like I'm leaning more towards Brenton Strange on this, given his volume lately. Alec Iamaner has still been getting a lot of targets for the Titans. Ridley's getting a lot of targets. He's not cashing in on them. And I guess the thing of working, Okonkwo's favor is Cam Ward just refuses to throw to his running backs. But if you could only pick one this week and you have to start either Strange or Okonkwo, Jack Miller from Establish the Run, which way are you rolling?
I'd also be going Strange, mostly just as a function of the matchup. I mean, Cam Ward he hasn't been bad, but I mean, the Titans offense has looked pretty bad overall. And this matchup on the road against Houston is just as bad as it gets for a rookie quarterback. Easier matchup for Strange, and so I'm going with Strange.
Yeah, I got the Texans defense deployed in more than a few leagues this week. Very excited to see what they're able to do. Cam Ward is one of these. I'm not putting him in the Jameis Winston category yet, but he might ultimately fall there. I love the fact that this guy's always trying to make a play, constantly pumping the ball downfield. That's what we want to see from fantasy quarterbacks. And quite frankly, it's what we want to see from our defenses when we're going up against quarterbacks like that as well. Sticking with the tight ends here, I'll get to another one that I think is probably only going to affect FFPC players looking to flex out a tight end this week. Would you play Dallas Goedert at Tampa, or would you play Geno Smith, who is at home? He's in Dublin across the pond against the Minnesota Vikings. Geno Smith, beg your pardon, or Dallas Goedert this week, Jack. I think it's very close between the two. Quite frankly, I think I roll with Goedert, but man, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I go Goedert too. The pass volume for the Eagles has just been so bad, but I think the scoring upside for this team is just a lot higher than it is for Pittsburgh. And so often tight end production is just who falls into the end zone. And I think you can feel better about the Eagles putting up points, as bad as it's been for them so far, than Geno Smith.
The whole running thing that they're doing in Philly, I mean, they can't continue to do this, right? I mean, we're going to see A.J. Brown. We saw A.J. Brown bust out last week, but we're going to see more consistent play from Brown and Smith and Hurts in the passing game, right? Or are we not? I don't know what to think. I just get so fed up with watching how this Eagles team wins games this year. And God bless them, they don't care about fantasy, nor should they. They're just all about winning games, but it has been annoying to watch.
Yeah, it's not an aesthetically pleasing brand of football, but it works, and it worked for them last year. They were more pass heavy than they were last year. They were pass heavier last year, but it was mostly just from a volume standpoint. The pass rate is not that different. It's just that they had more plays and had more total passing plays last year. They're not suddenly like running the ball like significantly less than last year. So I think the pass volume is going to correct a little bit. I still think it's going to be the lowest volume pass offense in football, but maybe closer to like 27 pass attempts per game as opposed to 22, which makes a pretty sizable difference.
Totally, especially when you're considering that a lot of people invested some serious draft capital into A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and quite frankly, Saquon Barkley, who needs some of those catches as well. The first quarter has come to an end. Kyler Murray was sacked for an 8-yard loss on 2nd and 7, and then he runs for 4 yards on 3rd and 15. When they resume on Prime Video, it will be with a Cardinals punt from their own 21, sending it back to Sam Darnold. We press on here. JG on YouTube right now, Jack, wants to know if we would trade Breece Hall and Amon-Ra St. Brown in exchange for Jamar Chase and Devon Achane. Now, Breece Hall, certainly, I think things are looking up for him. This coronation of Braylon Allen that a lot of people saw happening during drafting season. Certainly has not happened. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who a lot of people said the ascension of Jameson Williams was going to happen this year under the new John Morton offense. It was going to be a Williams offense rather than a St. Brown offense. That has been widely exaggerated as well. So you have Breece Hall and St. Brown here on one side. You have Jamar Chase, who obviously will take a bit of a hit, not a strong hit, in my opinion, in the move from Burrow to Browning. We've seen a lot of these backup quarterbacks able to keep that number one option not only afloat, but thriving. And then Devon Achane, who is the ultimate wild card. And maybe this trade hinges on what you think is going to happen with Achane and that Dolphins offense. I'm still bullish on him for whatever reason, even when that offensive line is bad, even when the offense in general is bad. Achane always seems to be doing numbers. He's been very efficient, both in the running game and in the passing game. This is a coin flip for me. I'm trying to figure out which side I'd rather have. I think it's Chase and Achane, but man, it's close.
Yeah, I spent that whole time thinking about this because I wasn't sure either. I prefer Amon-Ra to Chase, and I prefer Achane to Breece. I think for me, the gap between the running backs is bigger than the gap between the wide receivers, and so I lean Chase and Achane as well. But I think this is one of the fairest trades we've talked about so far.
So JG, hopefully that helps you out. Jack and I are both signing off on this deal to trade Hall and St. Brown and get Chase and Achane and go with God on this. We'll see what happens. We have wrapped up the tight end discussion. Want to get to a couple more start sits at the quarterback position. A couple of players that we've talked about a little bit tonight, but never compared them to each other. Amon-Ra St. Brown's teammate, Jared Goff, this week at home against the Cleveland Browns. Would you play him or would you play Geno Smith at home against the Chicago Bears? Not that I'm trying to poison your mind here, Jack, but the Lions are 10-point favorites against the Browns in a total featuring 44.5 points. Whereas you look at the Bears and the Steelers, I beg your pardon, the Bears and the Raiders are 1.5 point favorites, and it is a 47.5 point total. Spoiler alert, I think I'm leaning towards Geno Smith here, but you are a persuasive man. So maybe you can sell me. It is at home for Jared Goff, where he plays really well, at least.
Yeah, I think I tilt toward Geno too. I think this one's really close because the Lions should be able to put up points, but I think it's more likely that the Raiders are passing than the Lions, who might be able to just sit on a lead with David Montgomery and Gibbs. So this one's pretty close for me, but I'm Geno as well.
An implied point total of 27 for the Detroit Lions. As I look at the Raiders, it looks like about 25, 26 implied point total for Las Vegas as well. So it's very close. Listen, I think you can go with Goff if you want to here, but I lean towards Geno Smith, as does my good buddy Jack Miller. Final one tonight, and I'll bring this up. My bust of the year on my local fantasy football show was Baker Mayfield, Jack, and a lot of the reason, I mean, there's a multitude of reasons that went into that. I just feel like this dude was punching above his weight last year. I think about where you had to pick him in drafts this year. I didn't think he was worth it. I don't like him this week against Philadelphia. However, I can't deny what he's been able to do from a fantasy standpoint so far this year. He's looked very good. I think he's tied for second in the NFL in touchdown passes. So he's certainly up at the top of certain metrics, maybe at the bottom or in the middle of some other metrics. If you had a decision between Mayfield and Bo Nix this week, who Bo Nix is obviously playing against the Cincinnati Bengals on the second Monday Night Football game. Haven't mentioned that yet as well. There's 2 Monday night games this week. But Bo Nix, really good matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Baker Mayfield, not a great matchup against Philly. Who would you rather start this week as your quarterback, Mayfield or Nix?
I think just based on matchup, it's Nix. I think in general, who I'd rather have it's definitely Baker. But I think just this is pretty much the best possible matchup, or second best behind Dallas, and almost the worst possible matchup for Baker. So I go Nix here. There was also some weird stuff with Baker today where he was like dropping back at practice, but they wouldn't let him throw. Called it like a bicep. I assume he's going to play. He's had worse stuff and not missed time, but I just something to keep an eye on.
I do remember him shaking his throwing hand quite a bit in that last game last week. So I wonder if that has something to do. I don't know. But you're right. I think between these two, I'd rather have Mayfield on my roster the rest of the way, but definitely I'm playing Knicks over Mayfield this week for sure. And that's going to do it for our show tonight, Jack. Before we let you get out of here and enjoy the rest of this game, as we still have a 7-3 ball game, 14 minutes to go in the first half. The establishtheRun.com website is unbelievable as far as the analysis that you guys provide, everything that you're giving to your subscribers. The podcast, obviously awesome as well. At JackMiller02 on X. Can you tell us sort of what your specialty is and what you're going to be working on in the 2025 season for ETR?
Yeah, I'm working on the projections for ETR along with Leone and Mark Dankenbrink. So I'll be doing that a lot of the time. Then I also have some content. I have an article every week that comes out on Tuesday morning, just going through the biggest usage notes that I see from the previous week. And that's pretty much it. So yeah.
And anything, if you want to see Jack on any ETR podcast, obviously subscribe to the ETR podcast feed anywhere you get your podcast, or just go to x.com/JackMiller02. And anytime he is on a new ETR podcast, you're going to find it right there as well. Always appreciate our conversations, dude. Be good. And let's do this again soon.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
MyFFPC.com is where to go for the weekly challenge. Win up to $2,500. No draft, no salary cap. Super simple. Just pick your players at MyFFPC.com. We'll be back at 7 o'clock next Thursday. Optimus Fantasy C.H. Herms joins us for the 49ers and Rams next Thursday night. I'll mention this again. 2 Monday night kickoffs this week, 7:15, 8:15 Eastern time, and a 9:30 a.m. Eastern time kickoff in Dublin for the Vikings and Steelers. God bless a 15-hour day of fantasy football on Sunday. Going to be awesome. For our producer, Sean Engel, and for Jack Miller from Established Laurent, I have been Eric Balkman. This has been the FFPC Insider Access Show on the Better Sports Network. See you again next week, and enjoy week 4.